Hey folks, this is Kelani. One of the systems which sees significant change almost every expansion was overhauled entirely for Legion, and it seemed to work really well, at least for the start of the expansion. Professions actually meant something again at the start of Legion, and it's thanks to the new ranking system for skills, as well as the amount of work that went into making professions feel like an extension of your character and progression, as opposed to just being another menu to click through. Going into battle for Azeroth, it looks like a lot of that groundwork is going to remain, but there's also a lot of change on the horizon. Obviously, we'll have all new materials to hunt for and gather, as well as new recipes to create and craft, but there's a few other changes in store which makes me think the dev team is going to be putting a lot of work into the professions for this expansion, just like they did for Legion. So let's check out how professions are looking so far, what changes we can expect, and which professions have access to the coolest stuff this time around. Remember that this is all alpha footage and is subject to change, so it may not reflect the finished product. To start with, there's going to be a profession squish of sorts, just like how our item level, health and all of our stats are being significantly reduced in number, so is our max potential in professions. That doesn't mean we're losing any recipes or progress, the numbers are just changing. On the alpha right now, our max potential in any given profession is 300, so it's been reined all the way back in. Interestingly, this doesn't seem to affect the Battle for Azeroth professions because they're being treated as an entirely separate progress bar. You can see here with my herbalism, I don't have any skill whatsoever when it comes to the 1 to 300 bar, but I've been picking a few flowers out in the lands of Zandalari, so I've gotten myself up to 11 of 150 skill points in the Zandalari herbalism. If you're on Alliance, this would be called tiran herbalism, so they're named differently, even though I can't really see any significant differences between the actual professions. That means you should be able to start up any profession in Battle for Azeroth without any prior experience with it, because everyone will be starting from 1 in the new area's professions. An interesting way to fix the problem of numbers getting out of control, while also addressing the concerns of having to catch up on an expansion's level before you can start playing around with the new profession stuff. We'll see if it stays this way, but that's how professions are working currently on the alpha. Let's move on to the professions themselves. We'll kick things off with gathering because we can't really do anything without the raw materials. If you pick up mining, you can expect to see 3 varieties of ore on your journeys: monolite ore, storm silver ore, and platinum ore. Both monolite and storm silver have both deposits and seams, while platinum seems to come from just deposits. Platinum is the rarer of the 3, so that's probably our special ore this time around. As you can see, the ranking system is sticking around for the next expansion, but I'm not sure the ranks are fully implemented yet, and pretty much all of them just say you're able to gather the materials more efficiently. Hopefully there's some cool stuff added in there eventually. It's always more fun when those ranks actually do something cool and fun, as opposed to just yielding more materials. Moving on to herbalism, we have quite a few herbs out in the world. There's Akunda's Bite, Riverbud, Sea Stalk, Siren Pollen, Star Moss, Winter's Kiss, and Anchorweed. Interestingly, herbalism isn't going to work in the exact same way as it did in Legion with 1 herb per zone, and that's the only place you can find it. I've managed to find several herbs in one zone, and instead of them being limited to an entire zone, it looks like these herbs will be instead limited to specific environments. Riverbuds can be found near rivers and streams or small bodies of water inland, whereas sea stalks can be found nearer to the coast. Siren pollen herbs are growing from trees, either standing tall or even fallen down, whereas star moss seems to like the rocky texture of structures and ruins. So I think these herbs will be limited by these environments rather than by a zone. If the zone doesn't have trees, you probably won't find any siren's pollen. If there's no ruins or rocky structures, you probably won't find star moss. I think this is a way better way to spread the herbs out rather than just have 1 herb be available from 1 zone, and anchorweed seems to be the new rarer material as that's the only one with a green name. So that's the one to keep an eye out for. Once again, the ranks are pretty boring right now, they just all increase yield, so hopefully that's not finished yet. The last gathering profession is skinning. In Battle for Azeroth, skinners will be able to salvage bones, scales, and leather from their kills. Leather and scales are probably what they always have been. Beasts with leather hides will yield leather, while beasts with scaly hides will yield scales. The bones part is interesting though. I wonder if you'll get bones or leather or scales, or maybe bones and leather or scales. Maybe you'll always get bones, because pretty much anything you're going to skin is bound to have bones, right? I tried to test this out, but I couldn't actually skin anything at all, so maybe skinning just hasn't been implemented properly yet. What I do know is there's a few different types of leather, scales, and bones. There's a lower tier and a higher tier of each material. Coarse leather, shimmer scales, and blood-stained bones are the lower quality materials, while tempest hide, mist scales, and calcified bones are the higher tiers. These are uncommon materials and appear to be available through the ranking system of your skinning skills. As you can see, rank 1 allows you to gather the lower tier materials more efficiently, while rank 2 and 3 allow you to also gather the uncommon materials. So you'll need to rank up your skinning before you can get to the good stuff. That's it for the gathering professions and raw materials. Let's move on to crafting. This is going to be a very quick look over because a lot of this doesn't seem to be fully implemented, but we can see some of the cool stuff on offer for each profession. First things first, there's a new bind on pickup rare crafting material called Expulsum. I imagine this is going to be our new Blood of Sargeras, which will drop from a whole variety of sources to make sure everyone has access to it, but that bind on pickup restriction means that you're going to have to play a character if you want to use the Expulsum on some of its professions. I'll make another video talking about Expulsum if something crazy ends up happening, but honestly it's probably just Blood of Sargeras all over again. Let's do this in alphabetical order. So up first is Alchemy, where we can put all of those new herbs to good use. We have a healing potion and a mana potion already learned, and we may as well look at the ranks right now because I went through every potion in Alchemy and they're all the same. Rank 1 is your base rank for creating the potions, rank 2 reduces the amount of materials required for the potions, and rank 3 gives you a chance to create multiple potions, so it's more or less the same as Legion. There's a few new combat potions. Elixir of Noxious Touch causes your attacks to have a chance to deal AoE poison damage. Elixir of Replenishment restores mana over 10 seconds but prevents you from acting. Elixir of Arising Waves creates a wave which increases in intensity, dealing damage in its path. Steelskin Elixir is a standard armor potion for the tanks, and Coastal Rejuvenation Potion restores both health and mana. There's some utility potions too, a new invisibility potion called Dimitri's Draught of Deception, a new run speed potion called Lightfoot Potion, Potion of Concealment allows you to disappear providing you stand still, and Sea Mist Potion is a new levitation potion. There's also a flask for every main stat: Intellect, Agility, Strength, and Stamina. So flasks aren't going away anytime soon, and a whole bunch of transmutations are here, which seem to follow on from Legion Alchemy. Turn almost anything into almost anything else. There is a transmute for Expulsum though, so we might end up using that a whole bunch instead of the others, depending on how rare Expulsum is going to be. We also have some alchemy trinkets. There's a trinket which copies your current flask buff, but with reduced effectiveness, which sounds like you can double dip on your flasks for that extra bit of main stat. A standard alchemist stone which increases your main stat and gives your potions an extra kick, a trinket which restores health to you whenever you kill something, and another alchemist stone which doesn't seem to be any different than the other one, so maybe that'll get changed later. Not too much in the way of excitement, though alchemy tends to be a very stable profession which always provides valuable services. Up next is blacksmithing. Most of the crafting professions seem to be heading the same way. Currently we have recipes for a lower tier of gear, a higher tier of gear, and then very few recipes for an epic set of gear. Most of them aren't a full set either, so I'm not sure if this is what we'll end up with, or if we just need to check back later when it's been added to. But 3 different sets: Mariner's Gear, Honourable Combatant's Gear, which sounds like a PvP set, and then Stormsteel Gear. None of the models are working properly right now either, so that's a bit of a shame, but we can see that blacksmiths will be able to make plate gear, shields, and weapons. There's a few other bits and pieces at the bottom: a new skeleton key to avoid having to pay a rogue any lock-picking tips, some new hoof plates to increase your mounted speed in the new areas, and then a new set of stirrups which allow you to interact with objects while mounted in the new areas. So not too much excitement either for the blacksmiths at the moment, but maybe they'll get a few things added in before launch. All of the ranks are the same. Rank 2 reduces the materials required, and then rank 3 reduces the materials further. Let's move on to Enchanting. The new materials for enchanters are Shadow Dust, Umbra Shards, and Veiled Crystals. I assume getting your hands on these is going to be the same as always: disenchant greens for dust, blues for shards, and then purples for crystals. It looks like we'll have quite a variety of enchants as well. There's a set of glove enchants to speed up gathering, one for herbalism, one for mining, one for skinning, and one for archaeology. Ring enchants make a return, with sigils being the lower tier and brands being the higher tier. These enchants are for secondary stats, so one for crit, one for haste, one for mastery, and one for versatility. Then we just have some new weapon enchants. Weapon enchants were always the most exciting because of the special effects. Sadly, none of them are in the wardrobe just yet, so we can't preview them, but we can look at their effects. Deadly Navigation increases your crit by 50 for 30 seconds and can stack up to 5 times. If you reach 5 stacks, they're consumed, and your crit is increased by 400 for 12 seconds. Masterful Navigation has the same effect except for Mastery. Quick Navigation is the same except for Haste. Stalwart is the same again but for Armor, and there's one more for versatility. Gale Force can increase your attack speed by 35% for 10 seconds, Siphoning gives you an extra 7 leech, Tidal Surge can increase your mana regen, and Torrent of Elements can increase your element damage by 20%. Some interesting enchants there for sure. There's also some new enchants for your braces which revolve around your Hearthstone, reduce the cooldown of your Hearthstone, generate a shield while you're using your Hearthstone, or increase the speed of your Hearthstone. We can all be paladins in Bubble Hearth. Enchanters can also create a variety of wands, but sadly once again their models don't appear to be in-game. All of the ranks reduce the materials required for the enchants, or in the case of the wands, the materials required for the wands. Let's move on to engineering, which seems to have a whole bunch of fun stuff. There's some belt enchants. One allows you to fear an enemy within melee range for 5 seconds. One allows you to generate a shield which deflects all attacks from in front of you, and the last one removes movement impairing effects and shares a cooldown with potions. There's also a whole bunch of bombs. There's one to root your enemies within a 5-yard radius, one to slow all targets in a 5-yard radius, one to put your enemy to sleep for 10 seconds, another one to stun your enemy for 10 seconds. You can petrify enemies with this one, though they take 99% reduced damage, a polymorph bomb, which sounds like you're just putting mages out of a job, as well as a poison bomb which creates an area of poison that deals damage. That's a whole lot of bombs. There's a few devices to tinker with as well. This one allows you to alter the look of your armor, which sounds really cool. I wonder how that one will end up working. Does it just allow you to transmogrify every now and then? One to increase your mounted speed by 10%, which stacks up to 5 times, but could cause a few problems with your mount. This one allows you to summon a stable master, and the last one deploys a boat which automatically moves forward for 25 seconds. That sounds too cool to be true. I wonder how far you can get in 25 seconds, providing of course you can hop in the boat before it starts going. Engineers can also create goggles for themselves, again in a variety of models with different stats. It wouldn't be engineering without the goggles after all. They can also create guns and maces, it would seem, because the blacksmith obviously didn't have that covered already. And then there's some new scopes and ammo. Crow's Nest Scope has a chance to increase your crit when attacking. Frost-laced ammunition gives your attacks a chance to deal frost damage and slow your targets. Incendiary ammo deals extra fire damage, and the last one gives you a chance to gain haste when attacking. Of course, hunters can't use regular weapon enchants for some silly reason, so we're back to using scopes. The bomb ranks work the same way as Alchemy, with rank 3 giving you a chance to create bonus bombs, and the rest are just material reduction ranks. Weirdly, there was some mounts here in engineering in previous builds, but they seem to have since disappeared, so maybe they'll make a return, and you should be able to craft at least 2 mounts, I believe, with engineering. And that's it for engineering. On to Inscription. They'll be using 3 new pigments and 3 new inks. Crimson pigment is a common pigment and can be used for crimson ink. Ultramarine pigment is the same and can be used for ultramarine ink. And viridescent pigments are the rare ones and are used for viridescent ink. Scribes will have quite a variety of things to make in Battle for Azeroth. You get the codexes again to help your raid change talents. There's some new war scrolls to buff yourself or your entire group for agility or strength. There's one for stamina and one for intellect. There's your individual tomes to change talent, and then there's a new way of bypassing those pesky rogues and their lockpicking. One interesting craft for scribes this time around is contracts. These items allow you to gain reputation with a specific faction while doing your world quests. There's a contract for House Proudmoore, House Stormsong, House Waycrest, the Nazmir Expedition, the Tortollan, the Voice of Azeroth, the Vulpera, and the Zandalari. So I guess one contract for each rep we'll be working on, and you can get rep for whichever you want just by doing world quests. There's also a new Dark Moon card set to create and collect, as well as a whole bunch of offhand items to go along with those wands crafted from enchanters. There is a mass milling recipe for every herb new in Battle for Azeroth, and the last thing scribes can create is new Vantis runes for the new raids. All of the ranks are simple material reductions at the moment. Up next is Jewelcrafting. For those who love jewels and gems, Jewelcrafters can craft gems for different purposes, rings and staff weapons. The first gem I want to look at is really interesting because it grants 5% bonus experience. That's kind of weird and bizarre because we've never seen gems affect something like experience before, but if the bonus experience doesn't bypass the current cap, then it doesn't really mean anything anyways. Onto the usual gems, we have new raw gems for all different varieties and colours. The lowest tier of gems will provide +4 to your secondary secondary stat of choice. The second tier of gems will also provide +4, so that's probably not a correct value at the moment, but the epic gems will provide +9. So whether or not any of that is right, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but we also have some rings to look at. The rare rings provide you with crit, verse, mastery or haste, and actually don't have any ranks at all, but the epic rings do. They also provide mastery, verse, haste or crit. All of these rings come with a socket and have random additional stats. We can also craft staff weapons from gems and ore. It seems like there's going to be a few different tiers in there, just like all the other crafted weapons and armor, but these ones clearly aren't finished yet. All of the rank ups in Jewelcrafting are material reduction ranks. Moving on to leatherworking, they're the same kind of deal as blacksmithing, 3 tiers of gear both for leather wearers and mail wearers. Nothing is fully implemented yet, so no models or proper stat values, but at least we know we're getting 3 tiers of crafted gear. Leatherworkers can also now create bows and fist weapons, once again a few tiers available, and it looks like the dev team are spreading out weapon creation as much as they can. Leatherworkers can also create new bloodlust drums, which provide 25% haste instead of the full 30%, and they have a recipe to create the highest tier of leather for crafting. There's a new leather barding to prevent you from getting dazed while on your mount in the new areas, and a diving helmet and diving suit. The helmet provides you with water breathing, while the suit increases your swim speed. Those last 2 items are a very nice addition and will probably be much sought after, at least at the start of the expansion. No one likes underwater quests. All of the rank ups are material reduction ranks once again. Last up is tailoring. The first thing on their list is bags, both a 30 slot bag and a 32 slot bag, and I doubt these material requirements are correct because they both require the same thing, but new bags are on the horizon. They have a bunch of armor crafting recipes as well, but once again they don't seem to be entirely functional. The item levels are too low and the crafting requirements are all just 5 cloth. There's also some cloaks mixed in there as well, so tailors will still be crafting cloaks. There's a new item called Battle Flags, which don't actually give us any information at all, but from their names I guess they're going to provide AoE buffs for your group. The defense one is probably armor, the swiftness one is probably run speed, and the freedom one probably removes snares and roots. Tailors can also craft themselves some nets which slow their target for a small duration, but that 75% reduction could be very useful if you're trying to kill someone who is intent on running away. And last but not least, tailors can also create bandages, because first aid is being removed. 2 tiers of bandages which heal for a decent amount. All of the rank ups in tailoring are material reduction rank ups, so once again fairly boring or just not fully implemented. Now there is one last thing I want to show you, which is to do with professions. This is the scrap-o-matic 1000, which seems to somewhat replace the obliterum forge. The difference is that this time you appear to be able to get raw materials back from your items as opposed to a new crafting material. So if you throw in some plate armor, you should get back some ore. Leather armor should give you leather, etc, etc. There's a quest to get you started, and from there you're kind of on your own. From what limited testing has been done on this feature, it looks like you can throw crafted gear into the scrapper and get back an average of 50% of the crafting materials. So if you want to craft something which has a random element and you want something very specific, you can keep trying and throw the failures back into the scrapper to try and recover some of your wasted materials. There's also a chance to get some of the rare crafting material, Expulsum, so this might end up being a very powerful tool for anyone wanting to make gold from crafting. It only works on crafted gear, just like the obliterum forge. But that's it for professions so far. If anything huge changes, I'll be sure to keep you updated. Hopefully professions will be useful and fun in Battle for Azeroth, but what do you think of professions so far? What do you think should change from how professions were in Legion? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.